Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. I noted yesterday I was quite militant, and I was addressing, of course, the Daggle, the Maggle, Strags, the Boom Shikas, the Bonquishas, the Sapphires, Becky, Karen, and Amber too. I wasn't letting them off the hook. And I was getting on them not only about their antagonism towards us as straight men of the West, and particularly straight black men, but also their antagonism towards the women that aren't like that. I'm not one that believes in catering. I will say, though, that fair is fair, and I can't pander per se. I don't expect good women to necessarily pander to men, but they shouldn't be treated the way they are and ostracized. Pick me should have never been used as an epithet, but rather a compliment. Melanie King said something that justified and inspired that. And I'm not saying this as a slight against her, actually. Melanie King was making a valid point for men, and I appreciate her doing that. Before she said that, though, my own mother said something similar years ago. Now, there are many men who brought me or helped me along to the conclusion I expressed yesterday in the upload, but there's a part that Melanie King and even my mother played. Before I was Muslim, Mom and I had a conversation about how women assess men and how I look naive and inexperienced because I look younger than I am, or back then I certainly did. I told her how when they finally come to me, I have steps for them to earn a closer station and steps for them to earn trust, because I knew even by then that women don't appreciate men being easy. And understand this, I became Muslim about 2 decades ago this month. So this is before, I think this was before I became Muslim. My mother said, well, son, that just communicates that you can be hurt, so you're vulnerable. Of course, I never forgot that because I was confused. Because, see, apparently having any standards at all meant you were just vulnerable and weak and could be hurt, but not being on guard meant that you were just too easy and not much of a challenge. So this meant that there is no right way to go about this, which ironically, I was used to by that point. I was already used to the pessimism of understanding that everything I did was going to be wrong despite not being ugly. You see, the only other guys I knew that went through that type of advice where anything that you did would go against another piece of advice were the dudes that women called ugly. Made me wonder if I was just that for a short time. Gentlemen, understand that we've been told that we're going through these odd things and odd treatments from women because these women are hurt and they've been traumatized by things men have done to them. Ironically, even lady friends of ours and lady relatives of ours will tell us that some women are just hurting, that the things they do to us are just normal ways of coping with the hurt and pain. They may actually mean this when they say it. Gentlemen, this is what women either do not think or they think and don't say. And either one is as bad as the other one as far as we're concerned. What that is flip it. Yeah, see, they don't tell you to flip it mentally. Maybe they don't even think it. But that's the formula to understand everything between men and the Western women who want us men to not understand them. Flip everything, apply it in reverse. If in fact you cannot do the same thing in reverse or get the same demand in reverse and you can't get something else in exchange for it, you're counted as an inferior male, and most of us are inferior in their eyes. Normal is inferior in their eyes. Keep this in mind. When you factor this in, gentlemen, you understand the collective selfishness and the collective disdain they have for us as men. You can't go to them as wounded birds, and a good one, even a good one, decide to heal you. A good one won't want to heal you. So imagine the ratchet, the misandrist, the mean one. She'll want to do it again. Understand that a good one doesn't have that instinct for a man, and usually even they might have to fight the instinct to repeat the same injury to you, because to them, your injury is because of who you are or are not because of who the last lady was. I'm talking about the good ones too in this regard. They won't re-injure you intentionally if they're good ladies. I said intentionally. But even they have an instinct, because in the West, they're trained to assess you collectively. And understand, even good ones are usually aware of the hive mind as far as men are concerned. They choose to go against it, and that's what makes them good, but they're aware of it. Even good women know that if a woman knows you've been hurt in any way, the others are supposed to say that you're the guy to hurt. If they know that a previous woman hit you, then you're the guy to hit. If they know the previous woman cheated on you, then you're the guy on whom to cheat. This is why I was insulted on Russell Wilson's behalf when Sierra twerked topless for a camera and uploaded it. His first wife cheated on him with his teammate or teammates. His boundaries aren't to be respected as far as a Western lady is concerned. Do you see how bad this can get? Mind you, his situation in Sierra is not as bad as many of us think it is. But keep in mind, I got my mother's confession, Melanie King's confession, and J. Cash's experiences to back up what I'm telling you now. They're allowed to have their guards up. And that's always an excuse. I'm wounded, I've been hurt. You are not supposed to have that up. And if you even talk about being careful, who hurt you? Why are they asking that? Because they know you are supposed to be hurt, because to them most men are. Not only is there this pattern, but oftentimes women in the same locales will share the same information about what they've gotten away with doing to a man and to which man they did it and never paid. Now on the flip side, there are many men and even a few women that will tell you the right advice for the wrong reason. They'll say, set boundaries, make them clear, be alpha, stand on your square. You'll be treated better by women in the future. Well, the real reason to set boundaries and make them clear and to not tolerate the mistreatment is because that's the right thing to do and you're not inferior. Not because it's going to send some signal to other women to not mistreat you like the last one did. Don't think that by you doing this, other women are going to be impressed and say, that's a real man there. They'll say that if they were on the fence before. Then they might. But most of us don't even look so-called alpha enough to be that for them to come to this conclusion. They can't. You see, just being more alpha isn't going to stop the next one from trying the same thing. If she not only heard, but if she suspects or imagines that she smells that another woman did something disrespectful and got away with it. If she can't see you as alpha enough, and this is largely based on looks and how they perceive that you are socially with other men, then believe me, she will actually balk when you set boundaries like you weren't supposed to. That result is still better than her just getting used to disrespecting you casually because it's a Tuesday and she's in a bad mood. Still though, she's not going to decide that maybe you're an alpha after all. She's not going to decide that you aren't to be disrespected or hit or cheated on. She, like I said, she may decide that you're in fact a real man as she understands real manhood if she wasn't sure from jump and was on the fence about you and was testing you. But if she thinks she can look at you and tell that you're that guy to mistreat, she's not going to learn that she was wrong. And she will not learn to see you in a different light till you're completely done with her for mistreating you. That's the irony of it. And most of the time, if you look like that kind of guy to one, you look like that kind of guy to the next. So when you cut one off and mistreating you, you're going to be alone for a while. Don't blame yourself for it. If you set boundaries and cut her off, then give her a second chance later. Then she'll decide that you're not a real man after all, but rather the soft that she initially thought you to be. And she'll go back to making you regret that second chance because you gave her the second chance. So in other words, even if she does this and then you cut her off and she comes back, please give me a second chance. The only way to keep her respect is by not giving it to her. See how that works? And one thing about which black pillars are right is that this is largely based on looks. Now, it's not only based on that, but it is largely based on looks. In the West, absolutely. Because like I said, they assess you with a hive mind in the West. Because no woman wants to be the one that ranks you more highly than other women. Now, when you're obviously the wounded bird, you erase all doubt. I say when you obviously are. But to make matters worse, they're trained to wound most of us. And there's about, like I said, 15 to 7% that they want. And so they're the exceptions. They're not trying to wound those men right off the bat. Those men have completely different experiences, aren't part of this audience, and rarely know what the fuck I'm talking about right now. Might not even know about these spaces. Or if they do, they've heard about it from women's perspective, and we're just a bunch of, wounded birds sitting around crying because we can't get none. And they may really believe it, because they really do have a different experience. But if a woman does wound one of that 7 to 15 percentile, and other women know this, he's no longer in that wanted percentage anymore, but rather he's with the rest of us that they prefer to wound. And they prefer to do this because they know that the next woman will do the same thing as she ever even comes along. For most of us, setting boundaries will end relationships, marriages, or even talking phases, and you got to be ready to do that anyway and know that you probably won't replace it that easily either. You will probably be single for a long time after that, like you were before. You were probably not in a real relationship with her before that anyway. Be prepared for that and know and remember that this is not your fault. But also don't expect even good women to have sympathy for you because of what another woman did to you. Even the good woman's not supposed to come, well, maybe she's not supposed to come along. If she thinks that you should do that for her, she should do it for you. That's what I want you to understand, even when dealing with the good woman. If she thinks that her being a wounded bird is supposed to make her endearing to you, then further muck it. When you're a wounded bird, that's supposed to make her want to heal you. It just got to be fair, that's all. And that's one thing about even which a lot of good women are going to fail. Don't expect Sierra to sympathize with Russell Wilson being cheated on. Know that if she gets angry enough in an argument, she may even say to him, "That's why Ashton cheated on you, you insecure father mucker." Mind you, she's not ratchet and she ain't street. Oh no. Yeah, Sierra comes from a nice, good family. But she was imprinted, well, actually not but rather that's part of why she was imprinted by a non-street dude and was willing to break that imprint. Now, that's why she was imprinted by a non-street dude, but she was still willing to break that imprint with 50 Cent and Future, even though she called it quits with Future and broke that engagement while being his baby mama. She still was trying to change Future. Beforehand, she woke up. But the thing is, women whose imprints are the itness don't break those imprints with NS guys. Non-stereotypical guys. And they don't respect the dudes when they settle for them later on either. Even the NS man's bedroom skills aren't recognized. Simply put, the same techniques and skills in the bedroom or the kitchen or wherever else don't come across a skill to her when the man is NS, but as compensation for being NS and not itness. This is how they're trained to judge you. This is why it's so important to know that if you're wounded and you aren't inexperienced, because usually for most normal men, the experiences are going to involve wounds, minor and major. So if you're not one of the inexperienced guys and you got wounds, minor and major, chances are you're a wounded bird, because most men aren't the men these women want to hold on to without wounding. It's important to know that if you are the next one, I'm speaking too quickly, sorry. It's important to know that if you are that dude, that wounded bird, the next one will wound your normal behind again, unless you're in an environment in which those women don't know the women of your past environment. Because where you guys live and where I lived with a D at the end, past tense, they are trained by the hive mind to view you as deserving of the wound somehow. And they're so uniform in their assessment of men that they can all look and tell some idea of what wound you have. They can look and see, not because of something wrong with you, but because of how they're trained to view something wrong with you or something being wrong with you just based on your face, maybe even height. This is why it's important to know that if you don't start off in your teens with girls wanting you much, then as you get older, the ladies are going to seek to use you, wound you, or avoid you altogether. And that getting experienced at all will involve being done wrong enough times to be a wounded bird later on. Not some normal number of times, but enough times to be a wounded bird. Actually trained by ladies to do things for which other ladies will become turned off if they weren't already. They will even interpret things they want from you as signs that you're wounded. Or rather, they will interpret the things they want from some other guy as signs that you're wounded, so they can decide you're the guy to wound again. So they will look for reasons to decide you're the one to wound again. One example is being stood up. Now understand, you can react to that a few ways. None of them is the right way to recategorize yourself to her as a guy she shouldn't have stood up. If you react calmly, she'll decide you're used to it. So since you've been stood up before, she was right to stand you up again because you must be the kind of guy for whom it's not good for a woman to show up as agreed. If you react angrily, then you're just mad because you probably got stood up before. So she did the right thing by standing you up again because you're not the kind of guy for whom a woman should show up as agreed. You see how this goes? Now, if you react like you're a bit sad, same thing. If you don't react, same thing. If you block her, same thing. If you just don't say anything but you don't block her, same thing. If she remembers you enough, she'll tell some other women she stood you up and they'll designate you as the guy they should stand up. And if you ask any of them out later, they'll do the same. All the while you didn't even know that the first one told the others that she stood you up and was going to make fun of them if they showed up. See, once you're wounded as a man in any way, shape, form, or fashion, and the women that don't wound you can be ridiculed by other women for validating you. This is why it's best to just not disclose to another woman what a previous woman did. And you shouldn't even approach a woman who knows a woman that did you anything dirty that they wouldn't tolerate off of you doing to them. So really in the West, you shouldn't be approaching, period. If you've been wounded, stay by yourself until you're either approached by that unicorn or you're outside of the West altogether. And even then, don't tell those women outside the West what the wicked witches of the West did. Rather, just stay with the good wife. She can't heal you, but she can leave you to where you can heal yourself with time while she simply treats you well, which you should return in kind to her. Know, though, that your wounds and injuries do not attract them, even the good ones, nor do they provoke an instinct to heal you or treat you better or some sympathy. They are not the same, and for this, don't hate them. But don't go around trying to heal them when they're the wounded birds either. The reason is because most of you didn't get to just simply choose who wouldn't wound you while they had choices in men and gravitated in numbers to the men who would wound them because they would wound them. The choices make the difference. The options they've had and the choices they make in those options are another reason why we are not the same. Thank you for listening. Black heart, black mind, blackout. And as always, black, heterosexual, non-select male power because they don't like it, and black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day.